through the clearance of decaying buildings. The program was presented to property owners in the area as an economy measure. Gilbert Morris, then superintendent of building, said that at that point, the provision of free social services to the approximately 1 square mile of Skid Row cost the city over $5 million per year, as opposed to the city's average of $110,000 per square mile annually.
Wow.
The city administrative hearings to compel the destruction of the nuisance properties at the expense of the owner. Now, by July 1960, the clearance program was said to be 87% complete in the Skid Row area. With increased building codes during the 60s, owners of residential hotels found demolition to be more cost-effective than adhering to repairs. The total number of these units is estimated to have dropped from 15,000 to 7,500 over the following decade. Many residents of the area found themselves homeless with the loss of half of the affordable housing provided by hotels. Entering into the 1970s, Skid Row was established by city officials in 1976 as an unofficial, quote, containment zone, where shelters and services for homeless people would be tolerated. During the 1970s, 2 Catholic workers, Catherine Morris, a former nun, and her husband, Jeff Dietrich, founded the Hippie Kitchen in the back of a van. Over 40 years later, in March of 2019, aged 84 and 72, they remained active in their work feeding Skid Row residents.
What?
That
is amazing.
I thought that was pretty cool. Because they did like some charity work and stood the test of time in a place where I thought these people would get killed.
That is amazing.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Wow. Abso-freaking-lutely. Wow.
Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, many veterans of the Vietnam War found themselves drawn to Skid Row due to the services and missions already in place there and feeling outcast from other areas. Like those after World War II, many of them ended up on the streets. It was around this time that the demographics of Skid Row shifted from predominantly white and elderly to those there today. Skid Row has remained to this day an area where the city's unwanted are kept. From the 1987 crackdowns on Skid Row to patient dumping in 2005, to the same drug-filled streets that remain today. Now, there's a lot more history involved with this than that you can look up, and you can find more than you're going to bargain for. Okay, there is a ton of pretty dark. I didn't even go into it all. That was just a fraction.
Wow.
We could do a whole episode just on Skid Row.
Ugh.
It's bad.
That's unfortunate.
Even after some time in the beginning, the once beautiful hotel soon gained a reputation as a meeting place for junkies, runaways, and criminals. Worse yet, the Cecil Hotel ultimately earned a reputation for violence and death. In the 1930s alone, the Cecil Hotel was home to at least 6 reported suicides. A few residents ingested poison while others shot themselves, slit their own throats, or jumped out of their bedroom windows. In 1934, Army Sergeant Louis D. Borden slashed his throat with a razor. In a news article that I found, headline states, "Former soldier takes his own life." His throat slashed. Louis D. Borden, 53 years of age, former sergeant in the Army Medical Corps, was found dead in a hotel room at 640 South Main Street. Investigating officers finding a razor by the body and farewell notes reported Borden ended his own life because of ill health. In one brief note, he asked that a Mrs. Edna Hassener of P.O. Box 664, Edmonds, Washington, quote, be the sole beneficiary of the little that I have, be notified. Sad. Very sad.
That is very sad. Wow.
It's sad to me that, people like that go off and fight in wars and they come home and this is what they come home to.
Yeah, and they're so messed up.
Yeah.
Some people can handle it and some people it just gets to, and it's really, really, really
It's
sad.
a lot. Now, less than 4 years later, Roy Thompson of the Marine Corps jumped from atop the Cecil Hotel and was found on the skylight of a neighboring building.
Whoa.
In this news article, headliner states, a ship fireman in suicide leap, leaving no notes to explain his actions. Roy Thompson, 35-year-old Marine fireman, took what police termed a suicide leap from the 14th story of a downtown hotel early yesterday. Registered at the hotel, 640 South Main Street, for several weeks, Thompson apparently left from the window of his room. His body was found atop a skylight on a next-door building by a hotel employee who notified police. Detective Lieutenants Clark and Hill of the Homicide Squad notified a brother, W.E. Thompson, of Port Arthur, Texas. Which, by the way, I used to have a music podcast. Janis Joplin is from there. Sorry.
Port Arthur, Texas?
Yes.
Can I just say, you jump from a window of one building and end up on the roof of another.
On the skylight of
Like,
another, from
what?
14 stories up.
What?
It's, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
The next few decades only saw more violent deaths. In September of 1944, I'm going to let the listeners know that this may upset some people to hear this. Okay, so now's your chance to skip ahead a little bit. In September of 1944, 19-year-old Dorothy Jean Purcell awoke in the middle of the night with stomach pains while she was staying at the Cecil with Ben Levine, 38. She went to the bathroom so as not to disturb the sleeping Levine, and, to her complete shock, gave birth to a baby boy. She had no idea she had even been pregnant. Mistakenly thinking her newborn baby was dead, Purcell threw her baby out the window and onto the roof of the building next door. At her trial, she was found not guilty of murder by reason of insanity, and she was admitted to a hospital for psychiatric treatment. An article states, murder complaint. Dorothy Jean Purcell, 19, whom coroner's jury recommended to be held to answer on charge of throwing her newborn baby to his death from the window of downtown hotel. She is in a hospital prison ward. That's hard to read. Not gonna lie.
I've heard that story before.
It's so crazy.
But
It's
no matter how many times, like, no.
I try not to say this on the show much, but that's really fucked up.
Just no. Ugh.
It's fucked up. Okay.
Moving on.
In 1962, 65-year-old George Giannini. Why does everybody have a hard name? George Giannini was walking by the Cecil Hotel with his hands in his pockets when he was struck to death by a falling woman. Pauline Otten, 27, jumped from her 9th floor window after an argument with her estranged husband, Dewey. Her fall killed both her and Giannini instantly. Ugh. Now, police initially thought the two had committed suicide together, but reconsidered this when they found Giannini was still wearing his shoes. If he had jumped, his shoes would have fallen off mid-flight. Mm-hmm. Now, in light of the suicides, mishaps, and murders, Angelenos promptly dubbed the Cecil, quote, the most haunted hotel in Los Angeles. Mm. With all the death and despair happening at the Cecil Hotel, there was still more yet to come, and more evil than anyone would ever suspect.
Oof.
While tragic calamities and suicide have contributed heavily to the hotel's body count, the Cecil Hotel has also served as a temporary home for some of the grisliest murderers in American history. In the mid-1980s, my man, Richard Ramirez, murderer of 13 people and better known as the Night Stalker, lived in a room on the top floor of the hotel during much of his horrific killing spree. After killing someone, he would throw his bloody clothes into the Cecil Hotel's dumpster and saunter into the lobby either completely naked or only in his underwear. Quote, none of which would have raised an eyebrow, unquote, writes journalist Josh Dean. Quote, since the Cecil in the 1980s was total, unmitigated chaos, unquote.
Oh.
At the time, Ramirez was able to stay there for a mere $14 per night, and with corpses of junkies reportedly often found in the alleys near the hotel and sometimes even in the hallways, Ramirez's blood-soaked lifestyle surely raised nary an eyebrow at the Cecil. Richard Ramirez was ultimately convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, and 11 sexual assaults that would leave Los Angeles gripped with fear until the day he was caught. I wanted to so bad to go so far into depth in this one.
I know.
Because it's a topic I know a lot about.
I know.
But I had to remember that this was not about Richard Ramirez. I didn't.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
In 1991, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger, who strangled prostitutes with their own bras, also called the hotel home. What? Rumor has it that he chose the hotel because of its connection to Richard Ramirez. Now, because the area around the Cecil Hotel was popular with prostitutes, Unterweger stalked these environments time and time again in search of his victims. One prostitute he is believed to have killed vanished right down the street from the hotel, while Unterweger even claimed to have dated the hotel's receptionist. There have also been a lot of eerie, cold cases at the Cecil Hotel, while some episodes of violence in and around the Cecil Hotel are attributed to known serial killers. Some murders have remained unsolved. For one instance, a local woman known around the area named Goldie Osgood was found dead in her ransacked room at the Cecil. She had been brutally raped before suffering a fatal stabbing and beating. Though one suspect was found walking with blood-stained clothing nearby, he was later cleared and her killer was never convicted. Another instance of disturbing violence at the Cecil Hotel that has just gone unsolved. Just no big deal.
I mean, was it Richard? Blood-stained clothes?
No, I believe this would have been after.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Did she have a bra on? Because that was really weird.
That's what he did. He's actually just as bad as Richard Ramirez, another one that I could have went pretty deep on.
That's really weird.
I mean, when your hero is Richard Ramirez, you're probably pretty bad.
Yeah.
Another grimly noteworthy guest of the hotel was Elizabeth Short, who came to be known as the Black Dahlia after her 1947 murder in Los Angeles. She reportedly stayed at the hotel just before her mutilation, which remains to this day unsolved. What connection her death may have had to the Cecil is not known, but what is known is that she was found on the street not far away on the morning of January 15th with her mouth carved ear to ear and her body cut completely in two.
That's one I know quite a bit about.
I don't want to say this just because it's going to make me sound like a bad guy, but I really enjoy writing this.
I mean, we do like true crime as well.
Yeah, I know.
But I do know that the Black Dahlia was seen,
very famous.
Was seen that day at the bar at Cecil Hotel.
She was also at another hotel. I forget which one it was, but there was another
I do
one.
too, but she was spotted at 2 different places. I remember that same day.
Such stories of violence are not simply a thing of the past. Decades after Short, one of the most notorious deaths ever to take place at the Cecil Hotel happened as recently as 2013. Canadian college student Elisa Lam was found dead inside the water tank on the roof of the hotel 3 weeks after she had gone missing. Her naked corpse was found after a hotel guest had complained of bad water pressure and, quote, funny taste of the water. The authorities ruled her death as an accidental drowning, and critics believed otherwise. Before her death, surveillance cameras caught Lam acting strangely in an elevator, at times appearing to yell at someone out of view, as well as apparently attempting to hide from someone while pressing multiple elevator buttons and waving her arms erratically. Now, after the video surfaced publicly, many people began to believe that the rumors of the hotel being haunted might actually be true. Horror aficionados began drawing parallels between the Black Dahlia murder and Lam's disappearance, pointing out that both women were in their 20s, traveling alone from LA to San Diego, last seen at the Cecil Hotel, and were missing for several days before the bodies were ever found. Now, as hard as it is to believe, as some of these connections may be,